A house is made of wood and stone, but only love can make a home. Welcome to the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, helping you make your home into one you'll love even more. Here are your hosts, Dan Hansen and Betsy Thompson.
Well, happy Saturday, everybody. Happy Saturday, Betsy. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am living the dream. Normally, I would, engage in all sorts of frivolity and chit-chat and things like that. But we don't have lots of time. As you know, the second segment is a long one. So this one's got to be short. Mm-hmm. So right now, what I want to talk about is something that it's completely... I don't think that I'd call this home improvement related stuff technically, but I think it counts because, and I know you have the same service available. Mm-hmm. It's a service called Audible.
Yeah.
You and I both signed up for that at different times, and you still have it, right? You're still using it?
Yep, I sure am.
So Audible, let me explain. It's books on digital file.
Right.
Somebody reads you books, which honestly, I've avoided this for a long time because I was kind of one of those snobs where I like to just, I wanted to read the book myself.
Right.
I wasn't going to have somebody read to me.
Of course
But
not.
the thing is, and here's where I think there's a home improvement connection to this. Mm-hmm. Everybody should have Audible, or there's other services out there. I'm not saying this is the only service. Maybe there's better options out there.
Right.
But I have been listening to huge books while doing all kinds of painting projects and things around the house. And I have made my way. I just finished George Washington, A Life. I think it was a 900-page book. Whew. It took 41 hours of listening. 41 hours. But I made it through that. I don't have time at this point in my life to sit down and read a book that big.
Right.
I'll never make it with the kids interrupting and things like that. But I could listen while I mowed. Mm-hmm. I could listen while I was painting, while I was cleaning the garage. I took walks and listened. And I made it through this enormous book. And I learned so much about the Revolutionary War, about George Washington, all of those things, just because of this. I never would have gotten there. And I thought I wanted to talk about this because you've had similar experiences with it, right?
Yeah, it's been great. I originally got it because I knew I was going to be sitting in a hospital bed, and I wasn't sure, what my abilities and capabilities would be at that point. So that's why I originally got it was, maybe I couldn't hold a book, but at least I could listen to something. And it worked out great. And now I'm kind of hooked on it. When I'm driving, I'm listening to it. When I'm doing any of these projects at my parents' house, I'm listening to it. I mean, it's just, yes, I still love actual books. There's something about the feel and the smell of books.
Of course.
But this is a great way. And there have been books where I listen to them and then I go, oh, I really want the actual book so that, maybe I can make notes or whatever. And so I do then go and buy the book. So it's not necessarily, oh, you do this instead of the book. Sometimes it's great to have both.
Right.
And I just ran across a really great book that actually had, usually there's just one narrator who reads you the whole book, but this one actually had a couple of different ones, and they did some really cool voice things, and it was one of the best things I've listened to thus far. So there are some really good ones out there.
It's a really cool service, and what I like best about it is once you buy the books, even when you disregard the service, when you unsubscribe, you get to keep the books.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's great. It kills a lot of time while you're working around the house. It makes the projects not seem so bad, at least to me.
Yeah.
Audible. Definitely check it out. If you do a lot of home projects, it might be something to help you get through a lot of them and keep your sanity.
Right.
All right. When we come back, we're going to be talking about yet another big project that Betsy's tackling up north with her folks.
Oh, yes.
And that's all coming up next. Stay tuned.
Helping you turn your house into your dream home. This is the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, presented by Benjamin Moore on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
And we're back. Betsy, let's talk about something. Well, I guess before we get into what we want to talk about, you've been, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, you've been visiting your folks a little bit more, and it's really turning out well for the show.
It is. It's incredible the amount of things that I have come away with in the past few weeks. I mean, there is always something happening there, good and
Right.
bad. And
Well,
so,
yeah.
yeah, it's like a treasure trove for for the show.
Yeah, I know all of your parents' misery, that's one thing. That's bad. But man, what
Yes.
we're getting out of this is great. You called earlier this week to let me know what you found. Mice in a drawer, or evidence that mice had been in a couple drawers.
Yes, at some point. And up north, mice are just a part of daily life, especially when you live out in the country. It's like,
Yeah.
it's just what happens. So it was not shocking by any means, but it was a
No.
little like, oh man.
Well, you got
Really?
that to deal with, and you had a gas leak in a stove.
Yep.
And then you discovered that stoves are very tough to come by right now.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, then the water quit running. It turned out it was
Yep.
just the circuit breaker had blown for the pump. But
Right.
man, the troubleshooting that you've been doing over the last few weeks, it's like they saved all of the problems till you got there.
I know, or maybe I am the problem. Maybe
Yeah,
like
maybe.
there's something about me that, just all the problems happen when I'm there. I don't know.
I do want to say everything in the studio has been running flawlessly since you've been gone. So maybe that's
Well,
the
that's
case.
because I'm not there to make you nervous and make you panic that you're going to screw something up and make me mad. So
Yeah, I do
you
get
just
nervous
you
about
do
that.
it on your own time. Right. Exactly.
So what are you working on now? We've got this, I guess we're going to talk about some exterior painting, because
Yeah.
fall can be a good time to do that, but we're really hitting the end of that window. But we know people still
Right.
are curious. What can they get out there and do? And so we're going to talk about a bigger project, but we're not really advocating that you necessarily jump into these bigger projects at this point, right?
Right. My parents are looking at having their house painted. I mean, they've been on a schedule all summer, and because of everything that's gone on, it just hasn't happened. So that's just given us more time to choose a color and sample some colors and figure it out. But, it is getting late in the season to start a painting project. It can be done as long as you don't think that you're going to get it done in a weekend. A house is just too big. It's too much to tackle. And you have to be ready to kind of roll with whatever the weather throws at you, because this is the time of year when we go through cold spells and then warm spells, and we deal with rain and all of that. So you can't say, oh, well, I have a plan. I'm going to do it in this weekend, and then it rains. Yeah, you have to be flexible.
Right. You've got rain, but you've also got dew points and all of these things to deal with. You've got a much smaller window of working. Generally
Right.
we'd say working outdoors, you'd want to be doing your painting between about like 11 in the morning and then
Yeah,
stopping by about,
roughly.
what do you think, 3 o'clock? Right around that
3
window?
o'clock at the very latest, because I was noticing the other day when I was driving, the sun is really starting to go down by 6:30. By 7:30, we're starting to get almost dark, and by 8:30, for sure, we're dark. So you really have to do it when it's light outside and before that dew starts to set in. And when that sun starts to go down, dew sets in quickly. So you really have to be done by 3.
And if the paint hasn't dried or had a chance to get in that process, you can end up with water spotting, surfactant leaching,
Right.
all kinds of
Yep.
fun things like that. So you've got a smaller window to work with. You've got cooler temperatures to work with, which is nice to work in. It's nice to be
Right.
working
Yep.
outside when the temperatures are like they are. But you do need to be careful about surface temperatures being, the right degree for the paint that you're using. There are plenty of low temp paints out there. Endura, RepcoLite's Endura, any of the Benjamin Moore exteriors you can use down to low temps, but we are talking surface temperature, not necessarily the air temperature.
Yeah, that's the common misconception people have. They think that, well, it's, the paint says it goes down to 40 degrees, and so the air temperature outside is 40 degrees, but maybe the surface temperature is only, 30 or 35. So you got to be aware of that.
So you've got all of those things to work with and work around. It can slow you down. It's definitely something that can be done. And, even a big project like your parents, but smaller ones for sure can be tackled yet this time of year. But let's talk about some of the practical things that you guys ran into just preparing for the project.
Yeah, they had their house power washed. I don't even remember, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. It was a while ago. And, so that's the beginning prep stages. And then there are holes that had to be filled because they have trouble with blue jays, not woodpeckers, blue jays making holes in their siding. So the painters came out and filled all of those and got everything ready to go. They just have scraping left to do. But I was actually putting a sample on their house this past week, and I realized that the blue jays have pecked new holes that will have to be filled. And, spider webs happen like overnight in the blink of an eye.
Well, no kidding.
And so just because something was power washed does not mean that you can just go through and start painting. That time before 11 o'clock when you're sitting there going, man, I feel like there's nothing to do and it's driving you crazy that you can't just get started. That's a great time to go out and take a broom and get rid of all those cobwebs, because you don't want to be painting along and then suddenly you have a cobweb in your paint. That's a very bad day.
Right. Now, two things. When you talk about power washing, we talk about that all the time, that power washing alone usually isn't adequate for preparing a surface. We're talking about scrubbing it as well, right?
Yes. Yep. They cleaned it. They had a house cleaner out there. They scrubbed it down. They got as much of the paint off as they could with just the power washing and scrubbing. Now it's down to scraping.
Gotcha. The other thing is that what you're talking about with those cobwebs and all that, that's not just an exterior problem.
No.
I did some cleaning to do some painting in the house, and I did some prep cleaning. I got everything cleaned up, wiped down on a weekend, and then, how everything works. Life happens. The process takes longer than I think. But I ended up having to get back to some of the trim painting the following week. It's just been a week.
Right.
I cleaned up, swept up the floor and all of that, and just jumped into it, and I ran into exactly what you're talking about. All these cobwebs that had accumulated over just that week. The spiders were busy.
Yeah.
And it became a real pain. So it is something, if you do the prep work and you do get everything cleaned, but you don't get it all painted, it might not, if it's a couple days later, it's definitely worth taking a look at it.
Right.
Well, I didn't even see them until I started brushing through them. So, it's frustrating, but it's something you got to prepare for, and make ssure that you do that extra wipe down before you start with the paint.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk about the color, because that was interesting too, because whenever we're picking a color, that's one of the big struggles. You've got small color chips, and there's all these different ways. We've got color apps on the phone. Benjamin Moore has that color portfolio app where you can take a picture and color the side of the house with whatever color.
Right.
But that will work to some extent. It helps you get an idea, but it's never perfect. It's never flawless, and it's still a digital representation. How did you guys settle on that color? I know it took a little bit of actual elbow grease and brushing some product out, right?
It did. We started with, we think these are the colors that we're going toward, and we narrowed it down to like 3 colors, a gray, kind of a grayish color, and a navy blue, and painted them out on some big poster boards, took them out there, looked at them. They have white trim, looked at it with the white trim, and thought we were settling on the navy blue. My mom had reservations because she has seen houses that are a blue color, but in certain light, they look purple. And she did not want the color to come off as purple, which is a legitimate concern. First of all, she hates purple, but I have seen that where the blue has a slightly purple cast to it. So we got some of the paint that they're going to use on the house, and I painted out a couple of sections, different ones, the full length of whatever. I chose sections that were smaller between windows or whatever, so we could see it right up against the trim. And I painted probably, 4 foot long sections or 4 foot tall sections, so you could really see it.
So about as high as you could reach, right?
Oh no, because I am taller than you, remember?
I know. We've got this running debate. I want to be officially measured. At some point, we've got to find somebody who will, without bias, measure us. Right. Because I'm pretty sure I'm taller.
Yeah, that's a lie.
Anyway. So you painted that. Were you worried about, I guess, a couple of things. I'll ask that question since I started it. Sometimes people wonder about that. Now they painted a section and now they come back with maybe another color. What if they don't like that color? Is that a problem? And what about just, throwing another coat on? Do you see these laps and, the little patchwork pieces where you put all the colors. And how do you deal with that so you don't run into problems down the road?
See, for their house, I chose a smaller section so that I didn't run into that problem, so that, where the siding overlaps itself, I don't even know what the siding is made out of. I think it's just wood siding. But it does have, the shingled effect to it. And so I could do an entire section and then not do the board below it and have it, you would never know. So you don't get that patchwork, I have a fat edge or whatever. None of that would show.
Right, because that can be a problem. Right. We've seen that where people will put that on a wall in a house. Yeah. They'll paint a bunch of 2x2 squares all over their walls, and when they put their final coat over everything, you can actually see those in some instances. So you made sure you were careful and chose places where there was clear breaking points. What about switching color?
Switching color, because the colors that we were looking at were a navy blue and a dark charcoal gray. That's not really a concern.
Not a big deal.
It's not like we're going to a really light, sandy color or a navy blue. They're kind of in the same spectrum. So I was not concerned about putting this navy blue up there. And as it turns out, she loves the navy blue, so I don't have to worry about it.
There you go. The practical takeaway there is you narrow it down to the range.
Yeah.
If you can't decide between white and navy blue,
right.
That might be a little bit of an issue.
Right.
But even then, there's ways around it. You use the right paint, or from Benjamin Moore, or exterior. You're going to get the best coverage possible, the best hide possible, no matter what colors you're working with. One other thing, and then we probably should just wrap this up, but you're talking about a surface that's a wood surface that you're painting. If it were vinyl siding can be painted, but the big caveat there is the color you choose has to be the same depth of color as the existing siding or lighter.
Right.
You couldn't go to a navy, for example, if you had a tan or a white or something like that, if it were vinyl.
Right.
With your situation, it's no big deal.
Yeah, ours is wood, and if it's aluminum, you can do the same thing. You could go to a darker color, you're perfectly fine. Vinyl's the only one that you got to be careful with.
Right. Definitely, it will work, and you can make that work. So, is it right for everybody to get out there and start painting their house? Hard to say. It depends on what you're up for and what you're willing to bite off. We'd recommend if you're thinking about a project that big yet at this time of year, you definitely want to, before you start, stop out at any RepcoLite or Port City paint store, give us a call, and kind of talk it through. We've got on our website, right at RepcoLite.com, a form where you can sign up to connect with a contractor. If you don't want to bite the project off yourself, there are still people out there. Maybe not this year yet. There's a lot of people trying to deal with, a lot of jobs that were put on hold during the whole COVID shutdown thing. But you could get on the calendar for next year and just kind of coast through the winter, knowing that by spring, you're going to have a new look.
Exactly.
Either way, the projects can be tackled. You just want to pay attention to the weather. And if you missed any of the things we talked about, you can go back to RepcoLite.com. Once we finish airing the show at 9 o'clock sharp, it'll be posted and you can re-listen, because I'm sure everybody's going to flock there to re-listen. Or you could just call any of the stores and they'll tell you when you should be working and when not outside, right?
Right, exactly.
All right, we're going to take a break,
sure.
And when we come back, we're going to an interview that's Sans Betsy. That's a foreign language for saying there's no Betsy. Is it French? Without Betsy? Either way, you were gone. I sat down and recorded an interview about the trades and the importance of the trades with Brad Krause from Service Professor. It's really fun, and that's coming up next. Stay tuned.
If you want to take your DIY skills up a rung, the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show is here to give you a boost on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
Well, we're back, and, as we're navigating 2020, it's been a lot of fun. I'm in the studio. Let me just get straight to that with Brad Krause from Service Professor, president of Service Professor, right?
Yeah.
Do you go out in the field and do stuff? Ever?
I go out and meet people. How's that?
So you don't dabble in installing stuff? And
the underlying joke might be that my tools are retired,
gotcha.
But I am not. Yeah.
All right. So Brad Krause, president of Service Professor, you've been here multiple times, kind of our go-to when we've got questions. And honestly, Service Professor, we can have a lot of questions for you because it's not just electrical, it's not just plumbing. Talk briefly just about everything you guys do, because it is a little unique.
Yeah, I mean, I think I tend to speak a little more intelligently about the electrical since I am a master electrician. That's my craft. That's more my roots. But yeah, we do electrical, plumbing, sewer and drains. That's a big department for us right now. A lot of fun. Not a lot of fun to play in it, but our plumbers do a great job at it.
Yeah.
Heating and air, of course. Duct cleaning we do now. Duct sealing we also do. There might be one or two more under generators. We do generators.
Yeah. That's been busy. You do a lot of that.
Extremely busy. Yeah,
extremely busy with that.
Well, I think as the grid becomes more unreliable, it's more relative to people, and let's just face it, they're a real luxury item that are really nice to have.
Right.
So they're really convenient when you need them. For
right.
Sure. Yeah.
No, with navigating this year, it's been a crazy year for all of us in business. It's been a crazy year for everybody, no matter where you are. Yeah. Everybody's been infected. Yeah. Hopefully not. Yeah. Everybody's been affected. Clearly affected. And, some of the stories are really sad. You read through the news and you read about restaurants and businesses that I've cared about for years that aren't going to be back. And, it took them down. And so we all know those stories. But it is fun when we run into stories that kind of go the opposite way, because you guys actually at Service Professor are growing.
Yeah, we're approaching 100 employees at Service Professor, and it's crazy to think about, and just rewinding 5 years ago. It's been a great ride, and we'll take it. Very fortunate that we're deemed essential right out of the gates. Even though a lot of construction companies weren't, we're not construction. We're in service. And I think as people's home use actually increased through COVID, working from home, kids schooling from home, it actually created more demand for what we do. So the governor, made us essential right out of the gates, which certainly helped. But yeah, we've added, north of 10, 15 employees during COVID, and continually needing help. I mean, even right now, it's been crazy. A great ride though. And yeah, so as a matter of fact, next Thursday, we actually have our signing day for our Ride to Decide program. Which you're aware of.
And you need to talk about that, because another thing that, one of my favorite interviews that, we've been doing this show for closing in on 3 years, I think. And one of my favorite segments of all was one where we talked with you about the importance of the trades.
Sure.
And how, I know when I was in high school, it was, we still had shop class and things like that. But you were really looked at kind of poorly if you didn't want to go to college and become, let's see here, a stockbroker. I forget what the big ones were. Engineer, that's always big. If you're not going to do that, you might as well just throw your life away. So the idea of the trades, I think that's where it really started to trickle down. And now we're reaping the not benefits, but reaping the whirlwind of basically we've got a lack of people in the trades. And that's where we talked about the importance of that and the dignity of that work. And honestly, the satisfaction of that work. Absolutely. And how you can make a life in those fields. And you had this great program that you were starting to take around to schools and stuff called Ride to Decide.
Yeah, so obviously we've seen this coming. It's kind of lost its appeal. Pre-World War II, almost 85% of the jobs had something to do with the trades, whether it be welding, working with your hands, manufacturing, and now it's less than 6. Believe it or not, as mind-blowing as that is. I know the world's changed. You have a lot of e-commerce stuff going on. There's a lot of things that have changed. But if we're honest with ourselves, the importance of the trades has been lost, from career advisors to school counselors. And and I think it's because people care. People think that perhaps that's the best path as college, but it's not meant for everybody.
It's not meant for everybody. And look at how you weathered this past horrible experience.
There it is.
What did we need? Right. We needed people in the trades.
Yeah, and it'll never be replaced. It'll never be replaced by robots or machinery. And I tell our people that this isn't a second chance industry. This is a first chance industry. This is what you choose to go do. And I mean, yeah, I'm a college graduate myself, but I really did that out of just because I'm a goal-oriented person. It was another feather in my cap. I wanted it. But I started my apprenticeship as an electrician at 18. That's what I started. I did night schooling. To get my education.
All right.
But I wanted to still have that accomplished as well. It's just what I did. But, when I take the Ride to Decide program out on the road, I talk to people to say, hey, listen, I can quite literally, if I get my hands on a good 18-year-old apprentice that wants to be successful, has the right mindset, by their early 20s, they quite literally can be making a 6-figure income. Like, there's money in this too. Like, you can do well if you partner with the right company. I tend to think we're one of those companies, fortunately, but they can do well. And I don't say that from a braggadocious standpoint. I say that because, when you make the decision to go to college, if you're not sure that's meant for you, and it's meant for a lot of people, and that's great.
Yep.
But when people just go, well, maybe, I don't know what I want to do, you're making quite a financial burden on yourself if it's not what you want to do. We happen to have 3 technicians right now with 4-year psychology degrees. I don't know what it is with psychology, but we have 3 technicians that went to school and they've accumulated $100,000 in college debt, and they're kind of starting a little late, but at least they're starting, right? And when I speak to people on the road, I tell everybody that I'm big on retirement and investing your money and 401ks, which we have a great one, and I put that through to people, and I show them the math that it's more than the college debt risk that you're running by not going after something that you think might not be meant for you, meaning college. It's also, if you put $5,000 away, and I won't get too math on you here, but
why do I look too dumb?
No,
do I not look capable?
Not at all. I just don't have the time.
Ruled. I'm sorry about that.
This is such a passionate segment for me that I don't want to get too crazy with it. But I show the math that if you put $5,000 away in your 401k at 18, what that looks like. Pausing your work career until you're 22. Let's say you graduated college. That's not a $20,000 decision. Right? That ends up being a hundreds of thousands of dollars decision based on like a 7% return.
So wait a minute. If when I was 18, had been wise, and I had put if I had $5,000,
sure,
and if I had put it away,
yep,
you're saying that in just a few years, I'd have been sitting on a lot more money.
Well, by the time you turn 65, that 4 years of investment, that's compounding interest, right? Yeah. So I not only tell them, like, this isn't just the college debt.
It's loss of other money that you could have accumulated.
Yeah, or if I hear it all the time with our own people. Well, because we're all over them about contributing to the retirement. We talk about it, we train on it, and show them the value of it. And I've heard it a lot. Well, I bought a new truck, I can't contribute this year. And let's say it was at $5,000, and I do the math. I say that no longer is a $50,000 truck. That's a $200,000 truck. So I hope it's gold. I say that to them, right? Yeah. Because that's the detriment of it. So we take all that to people and say, here's all the information. Make the best decision for you. And it's worked. It's been successful. And we have that signing day next Thursday. It's going to be incredible.
And that's what I want to get to that. So Ride to Decide.
Yeah.
How does that work? And what's the whole point behind it?
Yeah, it's to get people all the information, our young folks that are in high school and their parents, right? And so I go and I volunteer and I talk to schools at their career days, let's say, and through their career advisors, through their school counselors, and tell them about the appeal in the trades and what is possible if you partner with the right company, whether it be drywall, whether it be welding, or what we do, plumbing, electrical, heating, cooling, any of those segments of how powerful that is. If you are meant to work with your hands, and you're that type of learner, right? You're a kinesthetic learner in school, and that you want to work with your hands. Go work with your hands. So we educate them on that. We also offer for them to come and ride with us for a day. That's the Ride to Decide part. Come ride with us for a day. Ride with one of our senior technicians and see what the day in the life of a technician looks like.
Do you do a lot of plumbing Ride to Decides?
We do.
Well, I guess you might as well see what's going to happen.
Get out there and get it. Yeah, just fully submerged, right?
Wow, really?
No pun intended.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, we let them ride, let them decide, is this meant for you or not? And every year, inevitably, we can't take every apprentice. We wish we could, but those that make the cut and wear our jersey, we actually have a signing day for them, which is really, really cool. We emulate a football signing day for declaring what college you're going to.
I've seen the one you did last time.
Yeah,
it's cool. Banners up everywhere, and
yeah, they put the little hat on. Yeah, and they pull the LeBron James quote of "I'm taking my talents to service professor." And the media gets a hold of it. Right now the media needs some feel good stories, so they're going to be there. And it's going to get some airtime, I'm sure. But I think it's something positive that's happening out there. So
well, it is really cool, and just the idea that. When I was in high school, I couldn't imagine saying I'm going into the HVAC industry and having anybody be excited or cheer for me. But, there's so much more to life than just, sitting behind a desk. I mean, that is right for some people. And I guess that's the thing. For me, it's a mix. I really enjoy getting out there and doing things with my hands and learning and just all the things that I pick up, the satisfaction that I get from that. There's so much to be had in the trades, so much satisfaction. And you mentioned the money's not bad either if you get in the right place.
That's right.
I mean, what do you get out of it?
Well, I think for me, it's we talk to our people all the time, and our top 2 core values are servant to the client, and number 2 is servant to one another. And I think if we go every day out there with a servant's heart, what profession do you get to serve people every day? And there's plenty of them, being a doctor, being a nurse. I mean, the list goes on. But at the top of that list is being in the trades. Mm-hmm. You get to help people every single day fix a problem that frustrates them. And there's a lot of gratification in that. And I think that's what I love about what we do is it allows you to live your life with that servant's heart. And there's just satisfaction in that.
I was talking to an electrician. I think he's an apprentice. And he was talking about this late night that he had. He's on his way home, and then they get a call from wherever he was working, and they had a little old lady who had damaged something. I forget what it was. I think she had one of those surge protectors that gets screwed into your outlet, and gives you more outlets, and she didn't realize it was screwed in to the wall, and she was pulling it out, and she just kept pulling it out until she got sparks.
Okay.
And then she's freaked out. It's late at night, 8:30. That's late for people my age.
Yeah.
And he ends up going out there to fix this. They didn't know what it was on the call. He was saying they were told it was a fire or something, that is out, but he's got to fix that. And he said it was so simple, it was so ridiculous, but she was so happy. Mm-hmm. We saved the day. We rode in. And I thought, how cool is that?
Yeah.
You're walking away from, fixing somebody's situation who they were blown away at what kind of problem they just created. And you can ride in, save the day, and ride back out. That's pretty cool.
Extremely great. I mean, great way to finish your day, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because a lot of those calls, they do sound far more severe with your job notes, right? Like sparks are flying, the place is on fire.
That's how we think we're going to get help quicker.
Yeah. But I think the takeaway from that is that's the severity in the client's mind.
Yeah.
Because, for us, it's simple, but that's knowledge that we've gained over the years. And it might have been a simple call, but it wasn't simple to the client.
Definitely not. And to be able to fix that.
Yeah.
You know what that feels like when somebody fixes a problem like that for you.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to do that on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
It's a cool thing. The trades, definitely not something to scoff at. We definitely need people out there, service professors looking for people. Brad, if our listeners want to get in touch with you for just get more information about what you just talked about, or any of the things you guys do, heating, cooling, plumbing, sewers, air duct cleaning, you name it, how do they best get in touch?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, call me directly. I love talking to people. Recruiting's a big part of my job now, and I love it. I'm kind of the first line of greeting for a lot of our applicants and stuff, which is great. But yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about the trades, or if you're in the trades now and maybe you're just looking for that better place that just thinks a little bit differently, that's who we are. Like, we want people to realize the best version of themselves every day. And it's not a really well-ran industry, but there's good companies out there. You just have to look hard enough to find them. And whether you want to be employed by them or you want to hire them, they are out there. And we'd love to meet any plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, with experience that want to realize the best version of themselves. Reach out to us. Our young people that just want to explore the trades, let us know through the Ride to Decide program. It's all available, and we just want to educate and certainly meet great people.
So what's the number? How do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can call. I'll give my direct line. Our main line is 616-871-1900. We've said that tons of times on the show, but my direct line is actually 871-1903. And if they want to call me and just talk about the opportunities that lie at Service Professor, love to talk to them. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, tons of info on our website as well, Dan. Plethora of information there.
Plethora of information.
Word of the day.
We crammed a whole bunch of stuff into the last few minutes. Brad Krause from Service Professor, president of Service Professor with the Retired Tools, right?
With the Retired Tools. That's
Retired
right.
Tools. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate it, Dan.
All right, time for a break. But when we come back, Betsy's got a PSA for everybody out there who's possibly thinking about replacing an appliance in the near future. You're going to want to tune in. We'll be right back.
If you want to take your DIY skills up a rung, the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show is here to give you a boost on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
And we're back, last segment of the day, and this one is public service announcement time, PSA time. Betsy, you were at your parents' house this past weekend, and you noticed a funky smell, the smell of gas leaking. And when you dug into that, you ran into a problem that you never saw coming. Why don't you just let everybody know, because it's possible that this could affect multiple people out there, and it'd be good to know ahead of time what's coming.
Well, we had been smelling gas, or what we thought was gas. We weren't really sure what the smell was. And we eventually figured out maybe it's a stove. So we had somebody come out, and sure enough, the stove had a leak. It's a gas stove, had a leak. And the guy said, you cannot, he said, where the leak is and what is leaking. He said it would be the same price or more expensive to fix the problem than to just buy a new stove. So he disconnected the gas and all of that stuff. We pulled out the stove. So it's no longer in commission, which led to a trip to all kinds of different stores to try to find a stove. And here is my PSA. If you think that one of your appliances is like on the verge of going out, you know, maybe it's not working so well, and you keep toying with the idea, oh, this is probably going to go out soon, we might need to get a new one, I would go buy a new one now, because in our shopping for stoves, it is the earliest we were going to be able to get one was sometime in the middle to end of October. And what my mom really wanted was like the middle to end of December before she could get it.
And what you were finding out there was that it's not just localized to them up north.
Nope.
This is a widespread issue everywhere. And in fact, we went and reached out to Steve Rosema from Northgate Appliance, and it's kind of interesting what's going on. It's, of course, all related to COVID. What isn't at this particular time, but it's a little more nuanced than that. You know, with all the shutdowns, everybody stayed home. And what did we see with that? We saw a huge increase in DIY projects. You know, everybody took on remodeling and different things like that. And so that's one of the issues that happened. You know, the supply that was available for all kinds of appliances were taken and put to use because of that. Well, and then you get the COVID shutdowns, which affected the supply chains, and factories weren't able to produce as much as they could. So it all kind of added up, as Steve's saying, to a perfect storm that left you with very few options out there, potentially. And I guess what we're getting at here is just that if you do have an appliance that seems to be a little iffy, you might want to at least start digging into availability and all of that, because you don't want to be in an emergency situation where you don't have a stove, for example, for any amount of time, really.
Well, that, and they do, you know, there are some things available, but who wants to pay for something that isn't what they really want just to get them by? So then you're either A, stuck with something that isn't what you want, or you know, you buy what you don't want and then you spend the money to buy the thing you really do want later. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So plan ahead a little bit right now.
It's just something to keep in mind, because you were completely blown away that it was going to be that complicated. You know, the frustration is, oh, we got to go out and get a new stove. And then the real frustration set in when you realized there weren't any available that really were what you wanted in the first place. The only things you could find were the really basic models, and it wasn't going to work for your situation. So just something to be aware of. One thing you could do is check the independent retailers. You might have better luck there. They might have a bigger inventory on hand. But one thing you're going to have to do, regardless, probably, is start making those decisions about what options are non-negotiable and which options you can forego if you're absolutely in a crunch. Well, Betsy, that's it. That's all the time we've got. If you want to catch this one again, you can find it online at RepcoLite.com. And we want to make sure that everybody out there is remembering we've got a brand new store that opened in Byron Center a couple of weeks ago.
Yay!
And it's a beautiful location right next to Village Custom Interiors. In fact, it's a really unique setup where we have a double door that connects the two buildings inside. So you can look for paint. You can move on into the showroom at the flooring center over there and pick out flooring, countertops, all kinds of things. It's a really unique setup. Definitely want to stop by and say hello. All of the RepcoLite and Port City paint stores are open until 3 o'clock this afternoon, waiting to help you. Whatever you do today, make sure paint's a part of it. I'm Dan Hansen.
And I'm Betsy Thompson. Remember, if you're about to lose your DIY sanity, we can help you fix that crazy.
And if your appliances do happen to go and you can't replace them right now, paint is always in stock, right, Betsy?
Well, of course, our stores are always ready to help.
Like little superheroes. Thanks for listening.